Okay, well, good morning, everybody. Today, we are pleased to announce an important and innovative law enforcement collaboration to fight gun crime, the Crime Gun Intelligence Center of Chicago. This in-depth law enforcement approach has been a year in the making. It brings together in one central location, here in this building, investigators, analysts, and prosecutors from 13 different agencies represented today on this stage with a singular clear mission: to reduce gun violence by identifying, investigating, and prosecuting repeat firearms offenders and their sources of crime guns. This unprecedented partnership in Chicago among local, state, and federal law enforcement will ensure the prompt and timely and comprehensive delivery of intelligence related to firearms that are used in crimes. The timely tracing of recovered firearms and NIBIN analysis of cartridge casings will produce comprehensive intelligence vital to solving crimes in our community. What makes this partnership you see today so significant is that for the first time, we are working together, combining investigative resources with our intelligence capabilities to solve firearms crime and hold those accountable who are wreaking havoc in our communities. At the CJIC, every morning, analysts, investigators, and prosecutors meet to review gun arrests, NIBIN leads, and firearms trace reports and compare this information with the combined intelligence capabilities of all of our agencies. This collaboration will result in swift charging decisions, which will take offenders off the street before they can engage in further violence. Most importantly, the center will operate with a level of urgency that is so desperately needed in this fight. What makes this innovation also unique is the full support of the senior leadership of the Department of Justice and their participation today. I am honored to welcome Deputy Attorney General Lisa Monaco and ATF Director Stephen Dettelbach here today. It is their support of our efforts which will drive our success in identifying, investigating, and prosecuting those responsible for violent gun crime in our community. Deputy Attorney General.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. It is great to be here in Chicago, to be back in Chicago, and to be here with partners and colleagues from ATF, from the U.S. Attorney's Office, the Chicago Police Department, and the Illinois Attorney General's Office. Thank you all for the work you do for the people of Chicago. I'm here today because the Department of Justice has no higher priority than keeping our communities safe. We are all in on reversing the rise in violent crime that started in 2020 during the pandemic. So in 2021, the Justice Department announced a comprehensive strategy to reduce violent crime, a strategy rooted at the local level, built on 4 pillars. First, focusing our enforcement efforts on the most significant drivers of violent crime, especially gun crimes and repeat violent offenders. Second, fostering trust and earning legitimacy in the communities that we serve. Third, investing in community-based prevention and intervention programs. And fourth, measuring and driving results with data to achieve tangible and sustainable decreases in violent crime. We've centered our approach on what federal law enforcement does best. That's acting as a force multiplier with our state and local law enforcement partners, surging personnel, investing in technology, and piloting innovative and data-driven initiatives. Now, core to this approach is the use of crime data, intelligence that generates leads, identifies repeat shooters, locates violent hotspots, and maximizes effective enforcement. And today, we're seeing this strategy pay real dividends. Gains are being made against carjacking and robbery. Homicide rates are falling across the country. And here in Chicago, homicide rates have dropped by double digits. Where violent crime is concerned, those aren't just statistics. They represent lives saved, families united, and communities made safer. Now, we've made very real progress, but this work is far from over. In too many places, senseless gun violence is still devastating communities, like in Chicago's Back of the Yards neighborhood last Saturday night, when a 9-year-old girl was tragically murdered and 10 other loved ones sustained injuries. A family's world was destroyed in a matter of seconds at a confirmation party. Now, every violent crime is one too many. Every innocent life lost to gun violence is one too many. And every shooter evading justice is one too many. That's why today I'm pleased to be here joined by these leaders and to announce the expansion of Chicago's Crime Gun Intelligence Center, or CGIC. This newly expanded center will co-locate 13 federal, state, and local law enforcement agencies. That's 65 agents, officers, analysts, prosecutors, all under one roof, working together to get shooters off the streets. With these additions, this site is one of the top 3 crime gun intelligence centers across this country. This center and others like it use cutting-edge technology that traces firearms from crime scenes, that links ballistics evidence and connects shootings, and that identifies the gun traffickers and the straw purchasers that are arming the gang members and other violent criminals. By combining this talent, this technology, and data, law enforcement in Chicago can swiftly generate more leads to identify the most prolific trigger pullers and to take them off the streets, so we can push case closure rates up and violent crime down. In today's world, we've got to be intelligence-led and technology-driven. We need to bring more crime gun intelligence to more law enforcement agencies in more jurisdictions more quickly than ever before. So, at the Department of Justice, we're committed to bringing crime gun intelligence to law enforcement across the nation, from the smallest towns to the biggest cities. The CGIC expansion in Chicago was made possible by the Department's Bureau of Justice Assistance, and for the past 8 years, BJA has invested more than $40 million into CGICs across the country, and many of those recipients have seen gun violence decreases in their communities. In the coming weeks, agencies will be able to apply for the next round of grants to expand existing CGIC sites and to launch new ones. These dollars are vital because they are saving lives. Chicago's CGIC expansion demonstrates how law enforcement can collaborate and can take action, and it's a symbol of what's to come. I want to thank especially the Chicago Police Department and Superintendent Larry Snelling, Acting U.S. Attorney Sonny Pascal, and Attorney General Kwame Raoul, along with federal partners from Homeland Security Investigations and the Secret Service. Thank you for your tremendous collaboration. And to ATF Director Steve Dettelbach, thank you for your leadership and the leadership of your team here. With a database of over 6 million pieces of ballistics evidence, ATF is now tracing more illegally deployed firearms than ever before. The public servants that you see here today and the women and the men that they represent are the very best of law enforcement. They've come together at one site to deploy the best data available to protect their communities. I am proud to stand with them. Thank you very much. And now with that, Director Dettelbach.
Good morning, everybody. Thank you very much, Deputy Attorney General Monaco. Deputy Attorney General Monaco is literally a warrior in the fight against gun crime and violent crime. Thank you also to all our partners, U.S. Attorney Pascal, Attorney General Raoul, Superintendent Snelling, and all the rest of the state, federal, and local partners who you see here, who are making this CGIC truly exceptional. That includes, of course, the Chicago Police Department, DEA, FBI, HSI, Secret Service, Illinois State Police, Cook County Sheriff's Office, Cook County State's Attorney's Office, and as I said, of course, the U.S. Attorney's Office for the Northern District of Illinois. Sonny, really great to be here with you. Thank you so much. Without all of our partners, what you see standing here doesn't happen, and this CGIC doesn't happen. I'd also like to give a shout out to everybody at ATF here, especially our SAC, Chris Amon. He is really a national leading expert on the subject of crime gun intelligence, or CGI as we call it. And that's really nothing more than the ability to squeeze every last piece of evidence and information out of a gun used at a crime to help both track down the shooter and also figure out who the shooter's supplier was for that firearm. Chris actually used to head up our national firearms operation division. That's sort of the nerve center of this national effort. And I'm very, very happy that he gets to be here in Chicago, bringing that expertise and resources to the fight against violent crime. This CJIC is really something. As the Deputy Attorney General said, 13 law enforcement agencies together under one roof with a focus on real-time ballistics testing and real-time firearms tracing. That level of partnership is exceptional. And as you heard, keeping communities safe from firearms violence is a top priority for the United States Department of Justice. And while our efforts are indeed paying off, and violent crime and gun crime in particular are coming down, we cannot become complacent. Too many lives are still being lost, as Deputy Attorney General Monaco said, for us to be complacent. It is time to double down and triple down on successful strategies. This year, for instance, over 4,600 people in the country have been killed in firearms violence. And that's just not numbers, right? It's family members, friends, neighbors, and tragically our children. We always should keep in mind the startling fact that the leading cause of death in America's children and teens is firearms violence. Not cancer, not cars, guns. Like the two young brothers that Deputy Attorney General Monaco mentioned, who were shot at a family celebration. This is simply an unacceptable state of affairs, and nobody here accepts it despite the progress. Seeking justice for victims and survivors and preventing suffering that others won't have to undergo is what drives ATF every day. In fact, at ATF, fighting violent crime is our mission. We are the only federal law enforcement agency whose sole focus is to work with police and other partners to protect people from violent crime. Our strategy to succeed in that mission is really twofold. First, to use the data to identify the shooters, the trigger pullers, and get them off our streets. And second, to use that same data to stop the people who are illegally providing them with their firearms, who are giving these shooters the guns that they're using. And we have to use every single tool we have to do both of these things. Now, there are many ways that guns are diverted from lawful commerce into the black market, the market that feeds criminals and other dangerous people. And ATF is working tirelessly to stop that diversion with the tools that we have, including data. Now, the two biggest tools we have are, number one, data, and two, partnerships. And what do you get when you combine the use of intelligence and data with partnerships? You get what you're looking at here. You get a CJIC. And hard data to evaluate ourselves show that the approach is working. 2 weeks ago, ATF put out the third volume of a national study, the National Firearms Commerce and Trafficking Assessment. And it's all about our firearms trafficking investigations. And one takeaway from that study was that ATF tracking investigations are increasingly intelligence-driven. That now over 20% of the cases we do in trafficking are generated by the kind of data that you see here, the kind of effort you see here. When you put cops, detectives, deputies, agents, and prosecutors from all different agencies across federal, state, local, in one room, working together, reviewing evidence from the previous night's shootings every single day, and working with real-time intelligence, it is indeed a true game changer. CJICs make homicide cases. CJICs stop the next shooting. CJICs allow law enforcement to focus their attention on the small number of individuals driving crime versus focusing on diffuse, broader communities. And CJICs help identify where the guns are coming from. Just last week, a Chicago man was sentenced to nearly 6 years in prison for unlawfully dealing handguns, rifles, and machine gun conversion devices. The case, investigated by ATF, CPD, Cook County Sheriff's Office, and CBP, and prosecuted by the U.S. Attorney's Office, is a great example of things to come here that are going to be generated by this CJIC, things that can and will be done to face down this threat. Now, the firearms trafficking study that I mentioned found that individuals who are illegally engaged in the business of firearms dealing without a license and not running background checks are contributing more and more to the flow of firearms to felons, gang members, and other violent offenders. In fact, that study found that 16% of the recipients of trafficked firearms are convicted felons. And of course, Everybody knows that, right? The data shows what our common sense shows us. If you can't pass a background check, you go to get a firearm on the black market, like from an unlicensed dealer. We need to be crystal clear. Firearms trafficking by dealing without a license and in other ways is not a victimless crime. If a person illegally helps to arm somebody who is violent, then they too are responsible for the violence that follows. And here is the message, both to those shooters and the folks that illegally arm them. This CJIC, ATF, and our great partners are now ready, willing, and more able than ever to hold you responsible. If I had to say one thing about the people that are standing here today in this effort, chalk one up for the good guys. Thank you very much, and I'll hand it over now to our U.S. Attorney Pascal. Son?
Thank you. I'm Sonny Pascal. I'm the acting United States Attorney here in Chicago. The United States Attorney's Office is firmly committed and firmly stands behind the new and expanded CJIC. Our office, for many years, has enjoyed a close working relationship with our federal, state, and local law enforcement partners, many of whom are represented in this room today. We work together to investigate and prosecute serious violent crimes, including murders, shootings, robberies, carjackings, gun trafficking, and drug trafficking that fuels much of the violence. The new and expanded CJIC represents another concrete manifestation of that close working relationship. We will have a prosecutor under the supervision of a more experienced AUSA engaged on a daily basis with CJIC. CJIC is designed to get intelligence into the hands quickly and efficiently of law enforcement across the city of Chicago and into the hands of prosecutors so that prosecutable cases can be built against those responsible for the scourge of violent crime and firearms offenses in the Chicago area, to hold those persons accountable for their crimes. We believe that the CJIC represents a significant investment by the department in collaboration with our law enforcement partners into our effort to reduce violent crime here in the Chicago area. Thank you.
First of all, good morning.
Morning.
First of all, I'd really like to thank Monaco for showing up here today. It's really important to have her presence here, and I'd really like to thank you for being here, ma'am. I'd also like to thank the ATF director, Dettelbach, because his presence here shows the support for what we're trying to do here in Chicago and the recognition of the gun problem that we have here. What can I say about SAC Amin? He's done just one, a heck of a job working on this CJIC project, working in partnership with the Chicago Police Department and getting this up and running. So it's very important that we make note of that. Illinois Attorney General Kwame Raoul, just a partnership. Thank you for everything that you've done. It's really important that we have these partnerships. And our U.S. Attorney Pascal, thank you for the work that you're doing. What I'd like to start out by saying is this has been a long time coming. There are people behind the scenes, not just the people who are standing up here, who have worked really hard on getting this CJIC moving. And I'd like to thank them also. Thank you for your hard work in getting this done. It's been just really, it's been a great team effort. First of all, I'd like to thank all of our law enforcement and government partners today. I'd like to thank the ATF for the partnership in creating this CJIC project. What you see up here are different areas of government that are all committed to saving lives and preventing the gun violence that's plaguing our communities. There's a proliferation of guns in our city, in our country as a whole. This year so far, our dedicated officers have recovered more than 3,500 guns. Since 2021, we've recovered more than 12,000 guns each year. The CJIC Center is part of our effort to directly address and disrupt the gun flow into our city. I talk a lot about the need for partnership and collaboration to truly strengthen public safety across Chicago. The Crime Gun Intelligence Center is that partnership in action. Rather than work separately and share information in segments, the CJIC fuses our efforts together and streamlines our efforts to hold those responsible for gun violence accountable. From the time of the crime to prosecution, this is an effort that incorporates all the agencies participating in the CJIC. As we work to launch the CJIC, we've improved how we're processing this forensic evidence within CPD. It's more efficient, and investigators are receiving the information in a more timely manner. With gun crimes in Chicago, this process begins when the forensic lab collects and enters recovered shell casings into the National Integrated Ballistic Information Network System, which is NIBIN. Each gun we recover that has been used in a crime is traced within 24 hours. This information allows the CJIC to link shootings and investigate the movement of guns used in these violent crimes more quickly. We also have dedicated Chicago police detectives that work out of the CJIC and relay pertinent information back to detectives in the areas, helping them solve cases faster and more efficiently. We've also dedicated members of our FIT team to the CJIC. That's our firearms investigation team, and they do a great job working in the CJIC. Alongside the agencies you see standing here, we're able to see these cases through, from when the crime occurs, to enforcement, to prosecution of those responsible. Again, this would not be possible without the partnership we have in the CJIC and the dedicated men and women who are working through these cases day in and day out to seek justice for victims of gun violence. It's important to note that when we look at the crime that's occurring across Chicago as it relates to gun violence, we're seeing children who have become victims of this type of crime. Senseless. And what I will say is that the Chicago Police Department, along with everyone who is standing here today, is dedicated to bringing justice to those families. But greater than bringing justice to families, we would like to take preventive measures, because if we're bringing justice to families, that crime has already been committed. So we're dedicated to doing whatever we can to prevent these types of crime and to protect our people in our city. It is important to note that this is a higher level of work that's being done here, a more intelligent way of getting to the bottom of gun crimes. It has been professionalized, and I'd like to thank everyone involved for helping us through this. So with that, I'd like to introduce the Illinois Attorney General, Kwame Raoul.
Thank you, Superintendent Snelling, and I want to thank Deputy Attorney General Monaco and Director Dettelbach for coming here to Chicago and for this commitment. Since becoming Attorney General in 2019, one of my top priorities has been to have the Illinois Attorney General's office play a greater role in combating gun violence that has plagued the communities throughout Illinois. In endeavoring to take gun violence on, I'm realistic about our limited capacity within our individual agency. That is where the importance of enhancing our collaborations with partners like the ATF and the other law enforcement partners here has become an important focus. Reducing gun violence in communities throughout Illinois requires a comprehensive approach that includes tracing guns utilized in crimes. The Crime Gun Intelligence Center will do just that by bringing federal, state, and local agencies together to manage and analyze gun evidence to prevent future gun violence. A high number of gun crimes are committed by those ineligible to possess or purchase guns, often because of their criminal background. They gain access to guns as a result of others intentionally trafficking guns into the hands of those who they know will do harm with them. We have been able to prosecute illegal gun trafficking that fuels violence in our communities because of the collaboration with ATF and other law enforcement agencies represented here. I had recently had the opportunity to tour this state-of-the-art facility, and I'm thoroughly impressed and optimistic about the work we can collectively do to further reduce gun violence with the data provided within this center. So again, I want to thank the commitment of the Department of Justice and ATF to this collaboration.
Thank you, sir. With that, we'll take any questions you may have.
Is the center physically in this building?
Yes, located out of this building.
And is part of this effort to try more of these cases in federal court?
So, I mean, the reason we have a multidisciplinary approach, we have 3 prosecutors' offices represented today, is because we meet to discuss the proper venue. And part of the CJIC is bringing these folks together to determine that, so determine where the case should be housed.
Where has this been successful, other cities?
So it's been successful in multiple places across the country. Denver, Columbus, Ohio, New York City also has a very successful CJIC. So it's an initiative for ATF and the Department of Justice, obviously funded by the grants from BJA, but a lot of success around the country as it relates to this program.
Okay, and then you guys said it was expanded. Was there a smaller version at some point here, and this is just growing now?
So ATF has always had a CJIC, so we have an intelligence group, partnership with the Chicago Police Department, but we've never had this level of partnership, everybody you see on this stage. So this is an expansion of that with all the partners you see today.
Gotcha, thank you. Is there anything else that sets this CJIC apart from the ones in other cities?
One thing I would say is the participation of our prosecutorial partners here today. In all of the CJICs that I've seen, I've never seen co-located prosecutors, so I think that's very important to what we're trying to do here is to have the prosecutors sitting with us in the CJIC, seeing the intelligence that we're seeing and being able to make those decisions so that we can get these folks off the street.
On a daily basis, how many people from different levels of government are going to be working in the CJIC collaboratively?
So all 13 agencies will be there on a daily basis. I keep talking about the morning meeting, but that's kind of our base of operations where we meet to discuss the prior night's firearms arrest, look at all of the ballistic links that have just come through from the lab and ATF's National Correlation Center, make those connections, and then appropriately work those cases with the proper agency.
Just got time for a couple more. We started a little late today.
Question specifically for ATF. I know that critics have said that Congress has sharply limited the amount of information you're able to provide on investigations, on gun tracing, and that has hampered local departments' ability to track trafficking trends. Wondering your thoughts on that and if CJIC plays into that at all.
Thank you for your question. At ATF, as you sort of referred to, right, we don't make the laws, we follow them. There are restrictions that Congress has placed on both the types of information and the kinds of individuals that we can share information with. And we work within those restraints because that's the law. With respect to, though, this CJIC, this is a law enforcement, obviously, run organization. And so this allows a lot of different agencies to come under one roof and to see all the information and use it for law enforcement purposes. So this effort is not implicated by some of the restrictions I think you're referring to, and we have to abide by those restrictions because, as I said, we enforce the law, we don't make it.
Okay, thank you very much for being here.
You could use one of those.